How did Venezuela collapse from being richer than Germany to a nation where citizens eat zoo animals to survive? That actually happened. In 2026, as we watch economic crises unfold around the world, understanding Venezuela's story isn't just history, it's a warning. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how a wealthy nation can destroy itself in just 2 decades. Before we dive deep into this collapse, you need to grasp something critical. Venezuela has more oil reserves than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than any country on earth. They're literally sitting on an ocean of black gold worth trillions of dollars. Yet between 1998 and today, the average Venezuelan lost 25 pounds due to starvation. The economy shrank by 75%. Over 7 million people fled their homeland. This didn't happen because of war or natural disaster. It happened because of choices. Let's travel back to the 1950s and 1960s. Caracas was called the Paris of South America. Venezuelans traveled to Miami not as refugees, but as wealthy tourists who bought luxury goods that Americans couldn't afford. The country had the highest per capita income in Latin America. Modern hospitals, excellent schools, a thriving middle class. Venezuela was basically winning at capitalism. The secret? Oil. But it wasn't just about having oil. Plenty of countries have oil and remain poor. Venezuela actually managed it relatively well for decades. They had a stable democracy, a diversified economy with productive agriculture and manufacturing. Oil money was invested strategically in infrastructure, education, and healthcare. They were following the playbook. So how does a country go from paradise to absolute economic hell in just 20 years? The answer starts with one charismatic military officer and a failed coup that somehow made him a hero. Hugo Chavez was a tank commander who attempted a military coup in 1992. He failed spectacularly and went to prison. But something unexpected happened. He became a folk hero to millions of Venezuelans. Why? Despite Venezuela's oil wealth, massive inequality still existed. Corruption was rampant. Politicians got rich while many Venezuelans struggled. When Chavez said he was fighting for the poor against corrupt elites, millions thought, this guy gets it. Released from prison in 1994, Chavez immediately began planning his political career. He ran for president in 1998 with a powerful populist message: redistribute oil wealth directly to the poor, stand up to Venezuela's corrupt elite, resist American imperialism, give power back to the people. His message resonated. He won in a landslide with 56% of the vote. At first, it actually seemed to work. Oil prices were skyrocketing in the early 2000s, reaching over $100 per barrel. Chavez used this money to fund ambitious social programs. He built medical clinics in slums. He provided free education programs. He distributed food directly to poor neighborhoods. Poverty rates dropped from 49% in 1999 to 30% by 2006. Millions of Venezuelans experienced real improvements in their lives. For the first time, they could see a doctor without paying. Their kids could go to school. They loved Chavez. But here's where the story gets dark. While everyone was celebrating new social programs, Chavez was quietly dismantling every institution that could check his power. This is where the economic horror story really begins. In 1999, Chavez rewrote the Constitution. He gave the president significantly more power, extended presidential terms from 5 to 6 years, eliminated the Senate, gained power to dissolve the legislature. He was giving himself the keys to the kingdom and removing the locks. Then he packed the Supreme Court. In 2004, he expanded the court from 20 to 32 justices and filled the new seats with loyalists. The court that was supposed to provide checks and balances became a tool of presidential power. Next came one of the most devastating decisions. In 2002 and 2003, workers at PDVSA, the national oil company, went on strike. Chavez fired 18,000 experienced workers. These were engineers who understood complex extraction techniques, geologists who knew where oil deposits were located, managers who coordinated massive operations. Overnight, Venezuela lost institutional knowledge built over decades. Chavez replaced these experts with political loyalists and military officers who had zero experience in the oil industry. Production efficiency immediately declined, but oil prices were so high that the revenue kept flowing, masking the damage being done. Then came the nationalizations. Between 2007 and 2010, Chavez seized over 1,000 private companies across every sector: telecommunications, electricity, agriculture, steel mills, banks, shopping malls. Foreign investors fled the country. What happened to these businesses after nationalization? They went from profitable to bankrupt almost overnight. Why? Because they were now run by Chavez's friends and military officers who had no business experience. Political loyalty mattered more than competence. Chavez also implemented price controls, thinking he could force companies to sell food and medicine cheaply. When you force companies to sell products below production cost, they stopped producing. Shortages began appearing. Store shelves started emptying. People waited in line for hours hoping to buy toilet paper. The government's solution? More control. They seized food distribution networks. They created government-run supermarkets. They required fingerprint scanners to prevent hoarding. But production kept falling because nobody could profitably produce anything. What about criticism? Chavez systematically silenced critics. RCTV, the most watched television station, had its license revoked in 2007. Newspapers faced harassment. Journalists were intimidated. Opposition politicians were jailed or forced into exile. The military was bought off. Generals were given control of lucrative smuggling operations. Military officers controlled food distribution networks where they could skim profits. Chavez essentially turned the military into a criminal organization with tanks. Chavez died of cancer in March 2013. His successor, Nicolás Maduro, would oversee an economic collapse so severe that it makes the Great Depression look mild. Maduro inherited a broken system. When he took power, oil prices were still around $100 per barrel. Venezuela's economy depended almost entirely on oil revenue because Chavez had destroyed most other productive sectors. Then in 2014, oil prices began falling. By early 2016, they had crashed to $30 per barrel. Venezuela's revenue collapsed. The numbers from this period are almost incomprehensible. Inflation hit 1,000,000% in 2018. A cup of coffee that cost 1,000 bolivars in the morning cost 5,000 bolivars by evening. People literally needed wheelbarrows of cash to buy bread. The economy shrank by 75% between 2013 and 2020. The United States economy shrank by 25% during the Great Depression. Venezuela's collapse was 3 times worse. The average Venezuelan lost 25 pounds due to what people cynically called the Maduro Diet. It was starvation. Families ate once a day, then once every 2 days. People hunted pigeons in parks. There were reports of people killing zoo animals for food. Hospitals ran out of basic medicine. People died from infections that simple antibiotics could cure. Women gave birth without anesthesia. Doctors performed surgeries by flashlight. The infant mortality rate increased by over 60%. The electricity grid failed repeatedly. The country with the world's largest oil reserves couldn't keep the lights on. Water systems failed. Diseases that had been eradicated returned. Over 7 million people fled Venezuela between 2014 and 2026. Doctors became Uber drivers. Engineers cleaned houses. University professors sold coffee on street corners. Professionals begged on the streets. By 2026, Venezuela remains in crisis. The government has partially dollarized. Some private businesses have reopened, but the country that was once richer than Germany now has a GDP per capita lower than Haiti. From richer than Germany to poorer than Haiti in 1 generation. So what are the lessons here? First, institutions matter more than individuals. Once those guardrails were gone, there was nothing to stop bad policies from destroying the country. Second, economic diversification is crucial. Venezuela became almost entirely dependent on oil revenue. When oil prices fell, everything collapsed. Third, expertise matters. You can't run complex industries based on loyalty alone. Competence matters. Fourth, price controls don't work. Every time they've been tried throughout history, they create shortages. Fifth, inflation is a choice. Venezuela printed money to fund government spending. This caused hyperinflation that destroyed savings. Sixth, silencing critics makes problems worse. When Chavez shut down opposition media, he eliminated the feedback mechanisms that could have warned about failing policies. The story of Venezuela isn't just about bad policies. It's about how quickly prosperity can disappear when institutions are destroyed and expertise is dismissed. It's about how populist promises can lead to catastrophe when they're not grounded in economic reality. As we face economic challenges around the world in 2026, Venezuela's story offers critical lessons. Protect institutions, value expertise, maintain economic diversity, resist simple solutions to complex problems, and never assume that prosperity is permanent. What took decades to build can be destroyed in years. Thanks for watching this deep dive into one of history's most devastating economic collapses. Subscribe for more content breaking down complex topics, and I'll see you in the next one.